Alright. Picture this. You're at home, you're chilling, and then you see lightning in your front room, and God comes into your house, and God says to you, alright, boom. You get to ask me. I don't think God would say, alright, boom. But imagine, yeah, God says, I'm gonna let you ask me one question. What would that question be? I thought about this, like, if God came into my house, I'll probably wet myself, yeah, but if he let me ask him a question, I've got 1,000,001 questions. I'll probably ask him, how is it that you existed before time even existed? What was it like when you created the world? How is it that you are able to know everything about everyone? I'll ask him so many questions. I'm sure some of you watching this, your question would be a bit deeper, like you would want to know why. Why has this happened in my life? Why have I gone through that? Why God has allowed certain things to happen? Hopefully in this segment, we'll get some answers. Stay tuned. Okay, so the first one we want to address is a question that a lot of people actually ask me when I go out on evangelism or when I speak to people about God. They say, alright, if there is a God, why are there bad things happening? Why are people doing bad things? Why are there sicknesses? Why are there people raping and people killing? Why are all these bad things happening if there is a God? I want to tell you a story, and hopefully this story can paint the picture to help you understand why such things happen. So I heard a story about a man who went to a barber shop. You know, barber shop where they cut hair, where you get a trim. The guy goes to the barber, sits in the chair, and the barber is a Christian barber. And then the barber starts talking to him about God. But the guy getting his trim, he don't want to hear none of that. He says, listen, I don't believe in God. And the Christian barber says to him, you don't believe in God? Why don't you believe in God? And the guy says, if there is a God, why are there bad things happening? Like a lot of you genuinely have asked. Why are there bad things like sicknesses happening? Why are people dying young? Why are there evil things happening? Like people doing all sorts of bad things. Why are these things happening if there is a God? And the barber looks down on his chair, looks at him and says, oh really, you think that because all these bad things are happening, there's no such thing as God? Cool. In that case, there's no such thing as barbers. The guy in the chair looks up at him and says, you're crazy, you're a barber, you're cutting my hair. And the barber says, no, there's no such thing as barbers. And the guy in the chair says, have you lost it? What do you mean there's no such thing as barbers? And the Christian barber says to him, look outside the window. So he leans forward, looks outside the window, and then the barber says to him, can you not see the man with the scruffy beard, with the long hair? If there was a barber, why are there people with long hair, with scruffy beards? And the guy in the chair says, listen, if that guy came to you like I came to you, you'll get a trim. Easy, done. And the barber says, right, in the same way, God is existing, but people don't come to him. So you got all these bad things happening because they failed to come to him to solve these problems. If you come to God, he will help you. He is a healer, he is a deliverer, he is a safe haven. So the reason why there are bad things happening is simply because people have failed to come to God. Yeah, in the same way that the guy outside the window with the scruffy beard has failed to come to me. If he comes to me, I'll cut his hair. That's what God says. If you come to me, I'll help you. But God can never force himself onto anybody. So that's the reason why there are a lot of bad things happening even though there is a God. Another question I come into contact with Christians or people who have just been saved or people who have gone through a lot in life and have come to salvation is, why did God allow me to go through all those things? Why did God allow me to go through the mistakes that I made and the struggles that I've been through before I got saved? Like, couldn't he just save me? I'm sure a lot of you watching this, you've experienced it before. You've gone through ups and downs and you've gone through hell and high water before you came to Christ. And then you've come to Christ now thinking, couldn't he have just revealed himself to me way before? Well, there's a man in the Bible called Jonah. I'm sure you've heard it in Sunday school. Jonah was a guy who God wanted to use to preach to a land that was rebelling against God. So God says, Jonah, go to the land of Nineveh, that's the land, tell this land to repent. In other words, to turn from their evil ways, because their evil has come before me and I want them to change. I want them to repent. But Jonah's like some of you. Jonah says, nah, God, that's long, fam, that's long. Instead of going, he does a runner. Jonah runs away from God. But the thing about God is you can't really run away from him. He's everywhere. David said, Even when I make my bed in hell, even when I'm comfortable in sin, in other words, he's there with me. Even when you try and run away from him, for those of you who may have backslidden, he's still there, right there with you. So anyway, Jonah does a runner, says, I'm not going to preach to those people. And then Jonah eventually finds himself at sea and he's on a boat. And after a few things happen, the people realize that the storms are happening and are almost threatening their lives because Jonah's on the boat. So they decide to throw him off of the boat. And what happens is God causes a big fish, a whale in other words, to swallow Jonah. Not to eat him, not to chew him up. And Jonah finds himself in the belly of the whale for 3 days. And then on the third day, he decides that, you know what, I've done wrong. And he worships God. And God speaks to the whale to throw him out. And it shows me, even on a side note, God responds to your worship. That you can be in a place of backsliding, rebelling against God, running away from God, but when you start worshipping God, it catches his attention. So God speaks to the whale and the whale throws him up. But guess where the whale throws him up? The whale vomits him out in Nineveh, the land where he was called to preach. Now the thing about the people of Nineveh is that they weren't believers in the true God. They worshipped a false God who was represented as half fish, half man. It's called Dagon, D-A-G-O-N, whatever that God is. Like, it's a small God, it's a fake God anyway. That God was like a half fish, half man. You know, like the mermaids, but like not a woman, a man. Half fish, half man. And they had statues of that God. So they were there on the sea when they saw Jonah's whale that swallowed him spit him out onto the seashore. So now they were able to see something that they were familiar with, something that they could relate to. Because remember, they worshipped the half fish, half man. So when they saw the fish spitting out the man, they listened to what he had to say. So Jonah eventually preached to them and they were all ears. I'm sure if he came before that happened, they wouldn't have listened. They would have said, go away, we don't believe in your God. But now because he came, spat out from a fish, and they worshipped half fish, half man, they were listening because a man came out of a fish. So they were able to relate. And in the same way, you went through those things that you went through in your life, the mistakes you made, the struggles you've had, the pains you've gone through, even the things that you think are bad. God allowed you to go through it so that when you come out of those things, just like Jonah came out of the well, people can see you coming out of that and say that I can relate to where you've come from. I can relate to what you've been through. And because I can relate to that, I'm going to listen to you. Most people listen to people that they can relate to, people with a common struggle or with a common issue. Do you see what I'm saying? You find that when you go to a place, people who have been through the same kind of life, they tend to come together. So if you have been through like gang violence and you've been through that gang life, when you come out and come into Christ and you go and present your message, your story, your testimony and say, this is where I've come from, people look at where you've come from and will listen to you. That is why God allowed you to go through those things. Not because he thought it was good, but because people need to hear your message and where you've come from and how you've changed. Maybe you've lived a promiscuous life as a woman and you've regretted it, but you've been through a lot of things that people in the world have experienced. They know what it's like to be mistreated by many guys, and then when you come up with that story about where you was and the things that you were doing, they can relate to you, so they'll listen to you. So that is why you went through what you went through. Not because God didn't watch over you, not because God didn't care about you, but because your story would be relevant to a certain type of people. I hope that this video has been a blessing to you. I hope you've got some answers. I pray that you'll be able to share this with somebody else and share your story, your testimony with somebody. Until next time, it's yours truly, King Nana. Stay blessed.